So the Nintendo Switch 2, or the successor to the Nintendo Switch, probably just got the biggest single piece of news we've seen for this console's existence so far, because if you are somebody who has been on the sidelines this entire time waiting for an official announcement from Nintendo before you buy into anything, I don't blame you if that's who you are. If you don't want to talk about insiders and leakers and things like that, and you don't buy into the fact that there have been reports, credible reports at that development kits are in the hands of developers, and you've just been waiting for Nintendo to comment on something officially, well, that day is still not here, but we have essentially the closest thing to it. Now that there's been an official anonymous survey sent out from the Game Developers Conference, or GDC, and we have over 250 individual verified developers actually claiming that they are working currently on next generation Nintendo hardware, specifically the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Now, this doesn't confirm a 2024 release, although I do think that that is absolutely where we are headed with this thing, but it does indeed confirm that dev kits are in the hands of developers, and that really changes the game when we talk about some of those previous reports that we talked about in terms of the potential tech specs for this thing and what kind of performance we might expect out of it. And we are going to unpack all of the details. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And with that, we're going to hop right over to VGC, where you can see their detailed typed up article, which outlines the following. 8% of developers in a GDC survey say they're working on Nintendo's next console, and 32% said Switch's successor is the platform that most interests them. The newly published 2024 GDC State of the Game Industry Survey asked over 3,000 game developers across indie and AAA studios questions about their work, including which platforms they're currently creating games for. For the first time, nearly 250 people said they were working on titles planned for the Nintendo Switch successor. Separately, 32% of developers surveyed said that Nintendo's next console most interests them right now, behind only PlayStation 5 at 41% and PC at 62%. It's worth noting that since the Nintendo Switch successor is yet to be officially announced, those working on games will be doing so under strict secrecy, so it's possible that more of the 3,000 surveyed are working on Switch 2 games but chose not to disclose this even anonymously. Although the company is yet to comment publicly, Nintendo Switch successor is widely expected to launch this year, and Nintendo shares hit an all-time high earlier this month, partly due to anticipation for its next console. VGC reported last summer that development kits for Switch 2 were in the hands of key partner studios, with a launch expected in late 2024. So again, outside of Nintendo officially confirming this thing, we have all of the evidence in place now from developers' own mouths as part of this anonymous survey that development is going down right now for Nintendo Switch 2. We don't know that that's what it's going to be called. We're referencing that as the name for simplicity's sake, since until Nintendo officially reveals the name to us, that's just what we're going to call it. I hope that it's Super Nintendo Switch, but Nintendo Switch 2, you get the idea of what we're talking about here. The 250 plus devs choosing to put down that they're actively developing games for Switch 2 right now, and specifically doing so under strict NDA, and probably a large chunk of those devs chose not to do anything, even though this is supposedly an anonymous survey. I'm sure if Nintendo really wants to figure out who voted that they were working on that, they can probably do so. So hopefully all 250 of those people roughly are safe with their current employment, but you get the idea. This is a big deal. If you were someone who is doubting the existence of the Switch 2 being ramped up and ready to go sometime soon, I mean, I don't know what else you need to look at now to stop and look around and realize that, yeah, we are officially past the 7 full year point for the Nintendo Switch hardware as of March 2024 this year, which is approaching us incredibly quick. That's already the longest life cycle of a Nintendo console in terms of it being their only flagship device that we know about. And so we're going to hear about this new hardware soon. The question remains on how Nintendo will reveal it. Would it be at something like a February Nintendo Direct if we do indeed get that presentation? Absolutely not, in my opinion. I think Nintendo will save their hardware reveal for a completely separate event. We might just wake up to a surprise tweet one day that says, join us tomorrow for a look at what's next for Nintendo with their hardware. And then we have that first look at next gen Switch trailer like we got back in October 2016 for the NX at the time. Then we might hear of some kind of dedicated blowout event. Now, it may or may not be live like we saw take place for the Nintendo Switch reveal event, or we might see something that is a pre-filmed filmed Nintendo Direct style event, but it's more focused on the hardware and some of the launch lineup of the games that should launch alongside this thing. We're talking about the possibilities of 3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4, maybe even a Donkey Kong game thrown in there. I think that we're going to have a little bit of a calm before the storm as we talk about the rest of January and even into February. I do think that we should get some kind of Direct in February. It might be a smaller Direct on the smaller side of brand new big announcements, because when Nintendo gears up for new hardware, they're going to want to come out of the gate swinging with reasons for you to have to buy that console day one, meaning it's going to need a packed first party launch lineup. And I think Nintendo's going to save all of their big heavy hitting games in 2024 for the launch window of this console. I think we'll see a lot of updates on existing projects that we know, and probably a couple shadow drops like Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remastered potentially at the next February Nintendo Direct. And maybe we do even get the look at the Metroid Prime 4 trailer, because it seems more and more like that's going to be a thing sooner rather than later. But I think you should start to shift those expectations towards a reveal in the upcoming months at some point in time. Now, there's a couple different ways I could see Nintendo doing this. Something like a March reveal is still very much on the table. You might remember when we got the initial reports coming in from Gamescom 2023 that Nintendo was showing off targeted spec PC hardware behind closed doors to select developers, that the developers were whispering about something that they heard that was significant in the month of March. It's clearly not going to be a launch in the month of March, so is a reveal the next big thing that makes sense? That's when Nintendo is loosely planning to reveal this thing. If they reveal it in March, it could either be ready for a launch as quick as May, that big leak that we recently talked about from Alltech Lansing and AI Shark of all people. I don't necessarily think they had inside info from Nintendo, but them being in the industry, is there a possibility that yes, indeed, they did have some good info that September 2024 is the planned launch month, and they just had to completely backpedal and claim that they were guessing because they legitimately messed up by including that in their official press release? That is a possibility that's on the table here. And even Andy Robinson, as I pointed out in the video talking about that, said that whether or not it was just a guess, it's a very good guess at that. He even thinks it does line up with a logical timeline on when Nintendo might choose to launch this thing. So in the May to September window, it's all on the table, maybe even as late as October for a launch. But I think that by holiday season 2024, the Switch 2 will be the hot ticket item for Nintendo, and it's going to be one of those situations where we're all just trying to make sure we don't have to pay scalper prices to get one, and you're going to have to be plugged in front of your computer on stock tracker accounts and things like that to try to order one. Hopefully Nintendo produces enough stock. They may or may not, but now we have developers straight up answering anonymous surveys saying they're working on the games for the Switch 2. We have the various different colored buttons things that we talked about before, where all of these Nintendo Switch games that are coming out, both first and third party games, are having support for colored buttons, where the A button is red and it's essentially the same color layout as the Super Famicom or the European version of the SNES, and then also the new 3DS color button layout. And so is this some kind of reference? Maybe it is Super Nintendo Switch and they're going back to that SNES era branding. It's entirely possible, but that's really where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What do you make of this big Switch 2 news? Do you think that this is exciting like I do? Now we have developers answering a survey, and what games do you think these developers are working on? If you were somebody who was thinking the Switch 2 or successor to the Switch is further off, does this change your mind at all? Do you think that just because there are clearly development kits in the hands of partners and development is going on, that it doesn't mean that it's coming out anytime soon? Or are you like me and you think with all of the different reports and smoke that is going on, that there is a fire with this thing and 2024 is indeed the year? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.